The beauty of modding is that it allows individuals to express their own personal beliefs and values through playable presentation. Instead of exhaustingly explaining what they feel, they can say, you know what, here, let me show you. Halo is no stranger to modding. For years, it's how Halo lived on PC. User-generated content provided endless entertainment on Halo Custom Edition. Through remixed levels, balancing changes, entirely new campaigns, and even completely different games on their own. Now that the MCC is on PC, we are very slowly but surely starting to see some of these unique creations. Until proper mod tools and support are provided by 343, the scale of creation won't be quite as high as what we see on Custom Edition, but for now, these will have to do. I played two very different campaign rebalancing mods today, from two very different and talented individuals. One is the Reach Evolved campaign by Vengeful Vadam, an attempt to wrangle Reach into something that feels a bit closer to Combat Evolved, and then the Halo 2 Rebalanced mod, a personal project by Rubey to correct the mistakes that he believes exist in Halo 2 Sandbox. Both of these mods are extremely confident in their presentation of ideas and very charismatic due to it. Let's get started. Reach Evolved has been cooking in the oven for quite a while now. I personally recall following videos on it back when it was in development for the Xbox 360. Seeing as I didn't have a modded Xbox 360, I could only watch these videos with envy. Now that Halo Reach is on PC though, it's hardly a problem. I replaced the campaign level files with the new modded files and jumped in to see what Vadam had in store for me. Those playing Reach Evolved should not go into this expecting a new narrative with new level design. What you'll get in this mod is something completely new in the moment-to-moment gameplay. The enemies have all been changed and altered, sporting different coloration, behaviors, and armors. The grunts, noticeably, are now more saturated and sport coloration that's familiar to those who played the original Halo trilogy. The elites are seen with more saturated and exaggerated armor, which helps differentiate the roles, something that was a bit difficult in base Reach with its rather muted tone. The Jackals brandish incredibly cool spinning blades on their shields that rev up angrily. To accompany the new enemies, the entire sandbox was changed, tweaking existing weapons or overhauling them entirely into something new. The DMR, for example, has been changed into a battle rifle. The Brute Spiker was transformed into something of a Brute shotgun. The Plasma Repeater was changed into a burst weapon, and so on. On top of all of this, player movement is changed to feel a bit more snappy and responsive, with the jump height increased to be a bit closer to that of the original trilogy. Armor abilities were completely removed, save for the one time that you need one to progress through the Exodus level. And I've seen complaints in the comments section of Vadam's videos about their exclusion from the mod, and while I can empathize with the folks who did like armor abilities, I largely disagree that their removal makes the game less special. On the contrary, with the removal of these personal superpowers, it leaves the external sandbox with the task of doing much of the heavy lifting itself. It wasn't until maybe 3 missions into the mod until I even noticed that they were gone because I was so distracted with how incredibly creative a lot of these weapons were. The weapon sandbox isn't just a simplistic array of archetypes anymore. This is the one that's automatic, this is the one that's single shot, and so on. These weapons are unique and different from one another, save for maybe the Magnum, which I found struggled a bit to make itself unique when the battle rifle existed. The moment-to-moment gameplay of Reach Evolved I found to be much more memorable and interesting than base Reach, and I found myself switching up my secondary slot quite often when I found a new toy that I knew needed to be used in the next situation. There's a term that was used to describe the kind of zen state you reach when you and the enemy enter a methodical rhythm of combat. It's referred to as the Covenant Dance, an expertly choreographed and seamless flow of combat that's usually over in about 30 seconds if you play your cards right. Reach and Halo 2 were games that I found to struggle a bit with finding this rhythm, but here in Reach Evolved, the Covenant Dance was shining through. If I were to get into some of the nitpicks I had, the mod's excitement to show the player these creative toys and let the player run wild with them led to a few missions where the player is about a step or two ahead of the combat pacing. On legendary difficulty, I'd find myself easily carving my way through the Covenant and sometimes quite literally catching them with their pants down, just spawning in and having to scramble since they didn't have time to prepare for my arrival. At one point, I was moving through the encounters of the level at such a fast pace that I broke some trigger point and was soft-locked, because the game had saved. I had to go back a few checkpoints by killing myself over and over again until the game reverted me to a previous unbroken checkpoint. Ultimately, Reach Evolved is an excellent recontextualization of Reach into something that flows a bit more like Combat Evolved. It's entertaining, if maybe a bit too easy, but something that I ultimately thoroughly enjoyed. Halo 2 is a game that I find to have a well-intentioned but iffy campaign sandbox. It's quite good fun in a competitive setting against other players, but it didn't really make for excellent player versus AI gameplay, just in my opinion. That's why the concept of Halo 2's Rebalanced mod appealed to me. I downloaded it for Halo 2's Vista mod, Project Cartographer. The creator of the mod, Rubey, is known for his personal opinion that Halo shouldn't have a utility weapon. For those who don't know, the utility weapon of a game is the gun that the game's combat is built around. In the game industry, a developer term for this is a keystone weapon. It's an extension of the player's will and fits the player like a glove. All other weapons are balanced in an orbit around the keystone, designed to inhabit specific roles that influence combat in tangible ways, such as Combat Evolved's plasma rifle having a stun lock ability, or the assault rifle's aggressively fast fire rate making it an excellent suppressive tool to control the flow of Covenant troops in cramped hallways, or the sniper rifle, which is to be used at extremely long ranges beyond what the pistol can reach. Rubey personally finds value in a weapon's lethality rather than its role in context of the keystone weapon, so in his mod, his views are reflected. The carbine and the battle rifle are toned down significantly, while weapons like the SMG and the plasma rifle are beefed up, now able to be used at very long ranges. Similar to Halo 5, every weapon in Halo 2 Rebalanced is more lethal than it is special, which can lead to you losing a bit of that Halo magic, but introduces something that's more aggressive and fast-paced. Player movement speed is upped to feel a bit closer to Combat Evolved, and the enemy's ability to track the player is toned down to allow for more freedom on legendary difficulty. I'd find myself zipping around the combat zones very quickly and using whatever I felt like using as my weapon of choice, since they're all quite even in terms of their lethality. Pacing is something that I would say the mod does quite well. Rarely are you slowed down unless it's something that is required for level progression, which is Halo 2's choice, not Rubey's choice. Enemies are usually opening fire on the player from a long range, and the extreme range of the automatic weapons means that gunfights now start before the player even reaches the enemy. As a sort of side consequence of the extreme lethality of the sandbox, your NPC friends can sometimes accidentally do most of the heavy lifting in a firefight. On Delta Halo, I found myself having to play catch-up with ODST buddies who were making short work of the Covenant. On one hand, yes, the NPCs are able to hold their own in a battle, but it robs a bit of the player's impact on the battle when you have ODSTs quite literally using SMGs to snipe jackals out of their nests and grunts out of their turrets before the player can even see these enemies. While the UNSC balancing I felt was off, the changes made to the Covenant's arsenal had the side effect of greatly increasing my enjoyment with the Arbiter levels. Levels like the Arbiter and Oracle have an incredible sense of pacing in combat, something that I feel the base versions of these levels lacked. Rubey's rebalanced plasma rifle, in my opinion, is a more interesting gun than his rebalanced SMG because of the need to track targets at long range, which leads to a level of care and timing, and I found myself using the plasma rifle more often than not because of this. The Arbiter and the Oracle used to be my least favorite levels in Halo 2, and thanks to this mod, they were transformed into standout achievements in sandbox encounter design and pacing, and I'll probably be returning to them in the future for even more playthroughs. I don't necessarily agree with Rubey's vision of a Halo sandbox, but his mod is a quite good statement for why he feels the way he does. and it's something that's worth checking out. Mods are something special, a way to generate additional content for a game, provide wildly different experiences and spins on what we accept as officially Halo. Often it helps to go off the beaten path and explore other visions for a series. Though we may not agree with choices made, it helps us explore what we find value in and often can shed light on new possibilities we hadn't even considered. The two mods I covered here are excellent examples of this, and I'd love to hear what you think about them in the comments, and what I should cover next. And with that being said, I'll see you guys on the next video.